you're listening to Julie Taylor, and this is Julie and Company. Today my guest is Alan Gauthier. Alan is a citizen of Brome Lake and somebody I got to have a chat with recently, and I'm so excited to introduce you to those of you who don't know him. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure, indeed.
You know, we had a chat the other day, and Alan, you're from the region.
All my life, yes.
Yeah, do you want to tell me about it? You were telling me you're an adventurer at heart. The beginning of your life was quite adventurous.
Yeah, I'm actually an identical twin, and we were well on our way to the Bahamas to live our life there on the beach, and somehow we came out. And in the
came
middle
out
of,
of
we came
money.
out of my dearest mother, a little bit unplanned, in the middle of the Atlantic. So our schooner, which was, funny enough, named Destiny.
Oh, wow.
And, Destiny, my father, who was the captain and the owner of the schooner, had to turn around and pull into the closest port, which was St. Augustine, Florida. So we were born there at St. Augustine.
Did you ever, out of curiosity, look up St. Augustine and what he means?
Yeah, I mean, St. Augustine is the oldest city in the United States.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the most beautiful, magical Spanish city ever. And he's a patron saint of children and all things good. It was just a comedy of errors and happy ones. And back then, I'll date my age, in 59 there was no Medicare, so parents were stuck paying medical bills in U.S. money, which, amounted to a significant amount. I think it was around $28,000 or something like that. So they had to sell the schooner in order to pay for the bill.
To get you out of hospital.
To release us even then wasn't enough to cover it. So the U.S. Air Force volunteered to bring us to Albany in one of their cargo jets. So we landed in Albany and took the train back to Montreal, and here I am. We had family here who were farmers.
Mm-hmm. I love the story. I think it's absolutely charming, and that you did go back and get some history of the town you were born in. That's wonderful. Okay, so you came to Montreal, and now here in the townships you had some relatives?
Yeah, my grandparents had a farm here, so we initially started when I guess I was 1 or 2. My memories are vague on that. We used to come up every weekend, and my mom's mom and dad had the farm here. And as a result of that, we just assimilated, and we built our house, and we built our house on the farm, and 64 years later, I'm here, and you can make it anywhere.
We were chatting. You were saying how you lived most of your life in Knowlton and Lac Brome.
Yeah, I did. I grew up here, went to the local schools and did what everybody else would do, and grew up on the steps of old Knowlton and lived through the times of culture and change. It was magnificent then, and it's magnificent now. It's just times are different.
Yes.
And it grew up, it came of age like I did.
So I'm curious to know, did you ever feel that, as charming as it is to be in a small town and a small community, did you ever feel that the adventurous side of you called you elsewhere? Did you feel you wanted to break out? Did you want to go see the world?
Well, I wanted to go out for school because we didn't, for further higher education. I mean, you were limited here.
Yeah.
So, yes, you had no choice but to go. And you did get a taste of the outer world, and you got a taste of how things, the multicultural aspect, because we were pretty pain blanc at that point when I was growing up. We were a bunch of white Anglo-Saxons, not really a bilingual community then as we are now. And the times were different, so it was nice to see the outside world, but it was always beautiful to come home. And I'd always giggle when I'd come over to Champlain Bridge from school that I'd see a cow in the field, and I knew I was on my way home. It was almost a relief, and even now, leaving for the day or a few days and then coming back, it's cathartic being here. I mean,
I agree.
It's the garden of souls.
We're so blessed because if we see what happened on the north shore of Montreal, and it's difficult to ever leave the city. You'll drive northbound and just feel like you're more in the city, more advertising, more stores, more rambling development, and there's just no break. Whereas it takes a special person or a special people to be able to be comfortable with the solitude and the landscapes and nothingness. Because the second you get off the bridge, or 5 minutes thereafter, it's only fields. We're not bombarded with that.
What's really incredible about the people and living here is, first of all, waking up every morning here is, my God, it's like waking up in a snow globe and shaking it. And what's really interesting is that knowing that you'll always be waving to the same person 2 or 3 times. There's a certain comfort and security in knowing that if you need to go out, you can always come home. This place is home. I think life happens so fast in big cities that you'll never see the same person twice. Or everything is urgent. Everything is on somebody else's clock.
Absolutely.
And here you get to set your own watch and you get what you give.
When I do wake up here, because I do wake up sometimes in the city, when I wake up here, it's a whole new day. I don't feel as busied by a schedule. It's a different rhythm. And there's so much room to project yourself and navigate your life differently. There's tons of space physically, but emotionally.
Being here allows you to exhale.
Yeah.
And basically, I think a lot of people take it for granted. We forget about breathing only when you come back and you realize, I'm here. And you look at everything else and you're saying...
So blessed to be here. So you were saying a little earlier that it's not quite the same Knowlton as once upon a time. It has evolved. It used to be more Anglo, unilingual, white bread, you were saying. And in the span of the years here, you've seen change.
It's been positive change. I think life is about change. Anyone who always wish it was the way it was, I don't get that whole concept of being stagnant. Like every garden, something grows. And I think the color of the multicultural, the multifaceted, it's basically the tapestry. It's like there's this whole mosaic that's been added and flavor that's been added, but still somehow it managed to hold on to its old school values. And there's a lot that radiates here. There's a lot of energy that people are starting to get it. And this is what's happening now. It's a renaissance of sorts here locally with a new flavor of colors, and we're recreating the portrait we really want to look at.
There's a few things you've just said that I'd want to elaborate on. One is my sense of this region is that the people who choose to be here usually choose it because of some fundamental values, and regardless of language or creed, they lean into this, whether it's nature, the landscapes, an older way of doing things, a kind of artisanal feel that there is a legacy here and there's still space to honor deeper values, whether they're old world values or just multi-generational hand-me-down values. There is a way of being and living that reflects this region and isn't everywhere to be found.
Our community here is so accepting. I mean, it's surprising how accepting and tolerant it is to change. And we do have an elderly population, a significant one as a percentage. But the open-mindedness that the older population has they'd rather embrace, and we all age in place here. It's almost a graceful existence. We're not afraid to be who we are, regardless of what our passion is. And there's something to say about that type of, I've always called it elves and magic, where we do live in this community where I can do what I wish, and we always do well for somebody else. And being here humbles you. It affords you time to self-reflect on where you are and what you've accomplished, and actually gives you the time to reflect on looking towards what your neighbor's needs are, because you quickly realize that living here becomes not about you. The quality of your life depends on the connection you have with those around you. And those of us who've managed to come here and come back, we learn that lesson rather quickly. And the humbling part of it is when you come to realize that, your happiness is not based solely on your desire. It's based on seeing the smile or the wave, just based upon your own personal growth. And here there's room for that. Everything is a garden.
What you're saying resonates with me. I'm an outsider, meaning I came here in 2000, so I don't have the first part down, but what I did observe is how interconnected this community is and how it is self-empowered by its own wish to step in and volunteer and organize. There's a grassroots movement, I've said it before on my show, probably stems from, you know, our heritage with loyalist people who came up here and settled, settlers, if you, and probably how they had to create a community and create services for themselves and just interreliance. And today it's still observable, which is phenomenal. It's such a beautiful quality, and it's so special to this region.
I think we've accepted our vulnerability. Once we identify being vulnerable, we learn that we must count on each other to make it. And this foundational belief systems of all loyalists, where it was entraide. It was something that they realized we can't just manage. And those of us who grew up here learned that lesson rather easily from riding the school bus or carrying somebody else's book bags. It's sort of a doctrine that became more of a religious teaching within the walls of your own home by your parents because they actually lived it. It was a beautiful thing raising a family here. And I remember my parents weren't any better than anyone else's parents, but they provided the security of a solid home, like a village. Because effectively your village is your home. It's just that you've got a lot of brothers and sisters, and a lot of them are a little quirky in their own right, but it adds the flavor to our life. And I think that the vulnerability is where we are now, as you know, we're slowly evolving and coming into the municipal element of this.
We're going to talk about this, but I wanted to just say, isn't it a paradox? Vulnerability, like you mentioned, the paradox is also self-empowerment and power. And that's where there's this wonderful dance in this community that is about empowerment and volunteering.
Absolutely.
You do have a grasp of all the different hamlets.
It's amazing to municipal governments all of a sudden centralized everything, but the identity of the 7 villages or little hamlets here that all united under one master banner, but somehow they always managed to maintain their own distinctive flavor. Each one of them is a color in our tapestry, and that's got to be celebrated. And it's something that's slowly been forgotten, I should say, through the element of bureaucracy. Centralized governments tend to make decisions based
on everyone being the same.
On everyone being the same, because they have this idea that we have to treat everyone equal. I get that concept, but it's not necessarily always true. Municipal governments are the keeper of the trust. Now, the trust belongs as much as to the people of Iron Hill as they do the people of Foster or whatever other hamlet. I think we've come to this crossroad that we're going to have to start being able to accept it, that we're going to have to honor it, and we're going to have to listen to them. I don't think we should be, or I should be, in any position where I'm going to tell you what you need. I think we now are at a point where we have to empower their voices, at least give the option to, it's your turn, tell me what you need, we can make it happen.
What I'm hearing is that you're talking about the different hamlets and their different flavor, but it's really their different identity.
Absolutely.
And what forges one's identity is one's experience. And so I think everybody had due to geography and history and language and whatnot, personal history, there is a sense of those communities having different needs, objectives, and different expression. And so what I'm also hearing is, you mentioned it earlier, we're going into municipal elections here in Town of Brome Lake. There are 6 hamlets. 7 hamlets. You're a candidate. You're running for mayor, and your vision would be, and we're talking about this indirectly, your vision is that they should have room to express their own needs, and we're not all homogenous people wanting the same thing.
No, I think assume that central government is all-knowing. Of course, it all depends on if they have adequate representation. Of course, now, but the key to that is having those representatives actually be integrated and knit within their community so that they can actually be the voice of the community. To be a mayor, I think it's your obligation towards your population is that you need to ensure that whatever you're hearing is actually the voice of the people. And at the end of the day, everyone pays taxes and again are the keeper of the trust, but trust does not only mean the cash, the kitty box.
Right.
The trust means the belief systems, the trust, the needs, the priorities. We can be the ears of a community in the meantime, and as the centralized government be the eyes and make sure that we do see and be, again, humble enough to say we don't have all the answers.
I also understand that there are some channels, committees, groups, volunteers that do come together on many issues throughout the hamlets, and that if you look at how politics is organized, there are opportunities for these voices to be heard by council and other elected people. However, is it always well represented, heard, and well owned?
No, absolutely not. All these entities are, as standalones, they're solid representative of what they need. But they tend to miss the element of being able to communicate their needs to others that coexist within the community. So my whole raison d'etre in the future would be an amalgamation or representative sent to a central committee of sorts where they can bring their wishes all together and compare and know that maybe 2 or 3 different committees need the same thing but in a different way. So there wouldn't be so many aspects of duplication. They wouldn't feel forgotten. And once people feel that you're actually listening to their voices, then you have their support. And unfortunately, as time progresses, you tend to deafen to the noise.
As a human component, if one is seen, heard, and validated, they will feel more willing and enchanted to continue giving. I think it's when it falls on deaf ears and not being seen that there's a sense of isolation, a sense of disempowerment, and perhaps disengagement that may happen. And we are a bit at a crossroad where individuals have become more isolated, and the idea is to reconnect them in a mosaic, as you mentioned earlier, a functioning entity. And what I think in Brome Lake is fantastic is that this fabric hasn't been pulled apart yet. This election, there's a sense of something threatened, a way of life, a group, duality. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like there's a little more at stake. Do you feel that way?
If you don't feel that way, you're not really living here. I think that communication between people has changed. We've all become ghosts behind keyboards and terminals. And the element of not communicating, I mean, a lot of people here would easily say things that they would never say to someone's face if they were within their presence. And we forgot how to be social. We are a tribe of sorts, and we forgot how to communicate, and our source of communication is through ghosting, anger, through words, hammering of a keyboard, rather than looking into somebody's eyes and saying, you know, there's got to be a way to work this out.
I think this community is all about working it out.
Yeah.
And it's all about finding the common thread between the humans within it.
That's right.
And somehow it feels more like slightly today that those things are jeopardized.
Yeah, we're fighting the keyboard right
Is there
now.
there's a polarity almost?
Absolutely.
Polarizing elements?
We're trying to say, okay, wait a minute, but what about me here? You know, we have a common bond. Let's go for Food Truck Wednesdays, or let's go to the beach and just kick our shoes off and say the day is done. Let's reconnect.
You know, let's lend an ear and see what council is talking about this week.
Yeah,
because
be
there's
open-minded. And it's gotten too argumentative because people tend to show up now with the automatic reflex of wanting to argue. The social skills has diminished somewhat. And, you know, this social behavior, it changes once everybody exhales. And people have to admit to their own fault and want to correct that type of behavior. And I think admitting to it is where we are, where we're having to saying, I contributed to this problem and how can I contribute to solve it? And I think everybody's finally becoming accountable.
And accountability at council is necessary. We talked that the different groups in their own hamlets and communities and organizations have a strong sense of what they need. They want to express it. We know that council's job is to listen to these voices, to make decisions based on this. You talked about duplicating. I suspect you're talking about budgets being duplicated for different things, whereas probably there's a different way of handling budgets so that a lot of the needs are met. What does it take to be a good council member?
That's an interesting question, because people are telling you things constantly, whether it's visual cues or words or just expressions or gestures. I think, in humanity at large right now, it's not just Knowlton or Lac Brome. I think we're all looking at the evening news and going,
how disconnected one must be.
But it's the power of one. And I think if we can change it here for us, then it creates this little trickle wave. And other communities will look at Lac Brome and saying, well, look, they seem to have their thing together.
I think what matters is that we know we've got our thing together, and we've had it together for quite some time. We don't want it to slip further. And I think people look to council members to reassure them that they're on the watch. They're doing their job well. Just from sitting in a committee as a young mother at a school level organization, it takes quite a bit of courage to say what has to be said in that moment, so that people don't gloat that they have the ultimate answer and that they consider every other option. But to stand up or take a stance and say those things is extremely intimidating on a panel and in a small village.
You have to be willing to be brave to make the step, actually putting a plan into motion. You have to be brave enough to take the risk. When you do that, you're extremely vulnerable on all flanks, because all guards, all shields are down, and you're going in blindly in hope for the final result. And what separates a good leader or a good mayor or a good councillor is that beautiful blend of courage and bravery. And personally, from my experience, already have been a councillor in another administration years ago. You tend all be courageous, but not many become brave. And we're starting to see that people are now requiring someone who's brave, because we all have good ideas. It just takes moxie in order to try to put a plan into motion. And you got to be willing to fail.
Hi, would you like to be on the show? Do you have any questions or ideas you'd like to share? Go to julietaylor.ca and leave me a message. Speaking of plan, we mentioned that organically there are many committees and they come up. We take the CCU, for example, when it comes to development and urbanization. All significant changes beyond painting a door or changing a window has to go through the CCU, which is a committee.
That's right. It's a legally constituted committee. It's by the City and Towns Act. Provincially, it is law that City and Towns Act determines the parameters of municipal councils, and it also clearly designates the Comité Commutatif d'Urbanisme as a legal entity, which's opinion is required for any projects or any...
Therefore, recommendation.
Absolutely.
Anything that comes through the CCU as a committee looks at, has a recommendation, and through their councillor, it gets...
One councillor is appointed with his portfolio, which is zoning or urbanism. He chairs the CCU, and his job is to bring the voice of that committee to his fellow councillors to discuss and to review the projects and to present their findings, not his opinion.
Therefore, on any one project that the CCU has reviewed, there's a recommendation for or against.
Absolutely.
And this councillor...
Or a modification.
Yes, and this councillor is responsible to bring that voice to the group, and then it can side rail?
Of course it can side rail. I mean, the final vote remains with council regardless. Now, the danger is that there sometimes has happened in the past, currently I'm sure, where there are stronger lobby groups where people are lobbying privately in the background. Councillors are humans, and they're approached and they're encouraged, and we live in a small community, so you see these people daily, and there's a tug of war. We all have one blanket,
or we all have our own inner tug of war. Do I do the right thing, or do I not do the right thing?
We're all in one.
So now we're looking for somebody in this election to transpire that they understand the people and that they honor the requests and recommendations of the committees and people in place, and have the courage to stand for those things?
That's in theory. Everybody's claiming, which is a giggle word for me, this word transparency. But there's no such thing as transparency in politics. At its best, it's translucent. And why it's translucent is because you always have to protect the individual who is making the plans, or who has the ideas, or they want to have... There's an element of confidentiality that has to be respected no matter what.
But there are checks and balances.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're supposed to respect the recommendations.
Absolutely. We should.
And be at the service of the electorate.
Yeah, we should be. And for me, as far as the authority of the CCU, I can't see, unless it's totally like absurd, why a council would not believe in the integrity of the decisions made by their appointed committee, which is set to review.
That's where you have to have the humility.
That's right. You know, you have to say, I don't know it all. I'm counting on your opinion. Put this in terms which I can accept and the people will want. And I don't care how many times it has to go back.
So, Alan, thank you so much for us today.
It's a pleasure.
And all the best.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. This catchy, positive, upbeat pop song by Fred Bound at Free Music Archive is licensed CC BY.